Okay, well, we can see that the VWAP's been taken out on this upswing, right? So that means that we have the ability to start looking for a downswing. So I'm going to remove this profile, and I want to start thinking about where we're holding right now, because here we are holding this low. You can see what we're tapping against, right? So if I'm looking at this, in fact, I'm just going to bring this back a little bit. So we're now just about right in line with it. Drawing tools and grab my line. We're on it, right? That means that we're breaking down through a range. This would be a range. This would also, the swing would be broken here. So with a push down here and trading some volume below that, I can start looking at it from a perspective of a swing lower, right? And the important thing that I've got to do in that process is I've got to think about how far I'm going to be able to get out of these things, right? So I've got a couple of places here on the chart where I need to be worried about risk to reward, right? That to me looks like a place that could be a problem, and obviously the prior low could be a problem. So these are the roadblocks, as I like to say, where if my risk to reward is screwed up on a short and I can't get my target, my 2-to-1 target, without having to trade through one of these, then it sort of negates the trade, or at least it puts me in a position where it doesn't make sense for me to be risking capital on, right? So it's going to come down to a lot of things here in terms of, one, does this actually break down? Two, do we trade volume below this line that I've drawn? Three, can we even get back up to an entry? If we do, where's the stop? How far does it, is it likely that we can get without, can we get 2-to-1 from the stop? In fact, let me go ahead and get a risk to reward here, and we'll start mapping it just so that we can kind of see and move it over here a little bit. All right, and you can see that's starting to spread out a little bit. So the tighter we get over, okay, look what's going on. We're starting to get some trading below this. We've got some good volume there. Starting to trade below. Yeah, and now our entry is basically right at the
order pending.
The transition. We're a tick in front of the CWAP. So let's go ahead and
order filled.
Okay, so there's our stop. Uh-oh. You guys see what I did? Look at that. My initial, I guess I haven't done the risk to reward yet, but do you see where my fill is a tick in front of, 2 ticks in front of the CWAP? All right, so what I want to do is get my fill and my thing lined up, and look at what I've done here, guys. I was so anxious to get into the trade that I didn't put it in the perspective of what my 2-to-1 return is. And because I got filled a little bit closer than I wanted to, it put me 2 ticks, because remember, 2-to-1 2 times further than I needed to be. And look where I am. I'm exactly 2 ticks behind the roadblock, right? So this becomes an issue where we need to think about what makes more sense. Is there some law that says I have to get 2-to-1 out of my trade? No, right? That's a number that we use for probabilities to help us understand what we should be getting in order to make sure that we don't go upside down. And in this case, I've set myself up a full point past where the logical roadblock is here. So am I more concerned about getting 2-to-1, or am I more concerned about not getting crushed, right? And I mean, I think that's really the important piece of it here, is to not put yourself in a situation where just because some number says that you need, to get somewhere, that's what you do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my target a tick in front of this point of control. That's going to put me 3 ticks closer than I should be for the 2-to-1, but that's okay, right? Now what I want to do is go in and just see, does my 3-to-1, am I screwed up on that too? And look at that. That's going to end up being a tick in front of the low here, right? So I'm good on that one. So we're going to go a tick in front of that number. and then we'll do the 5 to 1 and see if we can get a good long trade out of this. Bring this in a little bit. We've got 5 to 1 down here around 70.25. So, jumped the gun a little bit, got my trade in the wrong place. It looked like it was all coming together, but the way we fix that is not to freak out. The way we fix it is say, what's more important? It's more important that I get the risk taken care of than some mathematical ratio, right? 2 to 1 is not anything magical. It just is it's an easy thing to remember so that you're always trying to keep yourself positive. And in this case, let me go ahead and move my stop down a tick as well. So we've reduced the stop by a little bit, and we'll just see. We'll see if we can get this to do what we need it to do. Okay, starting to break down a little bit here. We'll see if this can get into, remember, we're going to go a little bit less than 2 to 1 and hope that we can make it up on the other side of it with the 3 to 1, which is tucking us in really close to the lows. I was fiddling around with this profile down here a little bit because I don't like the shape of this one. There's a couple of different distributions, but no matter where I move it, I can't really change the shape of it. And you can see where everything held prior, right? So let me take the profile off and let's walk through this. And I'm probably just killing time here. This is getting close. Here's the low, and then we lift back up and notice where we stop, right? We trade into it here, and then we trade into it here. So I'm going to grab this line just so you can reference it a little bit easier. This is where we stop the first time we come back. This is where we stop the second time we come back. Both of those are above my target, right? So I'm on this, based off of a profile, but the profile is really messy. It's not a normal distribution. There's not a good distribution of volume. It's all higher, right? And it's all coming in up here around 75.5, and I'm just concerned about. Oh, here we go. Not filled yet, but on it. No, didn't get it. But we are going to move our stop, so I'm going to fall asleep doing something else. And we're on it, just not filling.
Target filled.
Okay, well there we go with the almost 2 to 1, right? A little bit short of 2 to 1. And so while we're sort of sitting on this, waiting for the stop to move, I want to bring you back to this profile. I'll try and zoom in on this when I'm doing the editing, but the issue, you can see how there's a block of volume that falls. Let me put a crosshair on here real quick. The block of volume falls from 76 to 75, right? Then there's a gap where there's no volume, and then we've got volume right at the low again. And my concern is this order is going to get missed, right? Like part of me would much rather have it at 75.50 on the edge of all that volume down there, here, as opposed to down here. But I'm just going to leave it as is and suck it up if it doesn't work out. Okay, pulling back into the CWAP, almost up to the volume weighted average price. You can see sort of the transition that we moved off of, and seeing if this will come back down. Okay, market moving back down away. Like to see that. See if we can get down and start heading towards our 74.75 target down below. Okay, well, we're starting to drive at these lows, 11 o'clock lows. Stop now improved to just one tick. So we've got 2 contracts out, 1 tick a piece. So 2 ticks worth of risk on the trade. Coming down to that second target, which is right at 3 to 1, trying to stay right in front of that low. And again, a little concerned about where this ended up, but I don't want to get too frustrated with it. We'll make a decision if it what to do if it doesn't happen. Oh, here we go. Stops down at entry. Good Lord, this is not what I want to see. Ticking right on it.
Target filled.
Okay, well, we got it down at the low. So again, this is always something to be concerned about when you've got a double or a complex distribution, but in this case it managed to work out, so not overly concerned about it. And then, and now sort of jumping right back up. Okay, so stop is now a couple of ticks in front of entry. And again, this is the kind of thing where if you were at the low, same low that we were at earlier, do we want to allow that to be what takes us out of the trade and comes all the way back up, however many points this is. So we're currently at least 4 points away, right? So some of the things that we can do in order to sort of mitigate that is look where those transitions fall. Right, so here's a key one. This is where we took profit. This is where we expected the market to stop and create a transition, and what happened? Exactly that. So if we come in and mark off that volume, we can see sort of an edge where the market really shouldn't trade any further, right? We shouldn't go back any further than this last transition. And you can even pull it, from here and see the same thing. So if we move this over here, right, and that gives us a little bit better. Let me go ahead and move this down. That gives us a little bit better backstop right around 80. Right, we're only a couple of ticks off of where it would be. But if you want to improve your stop by a few ticks and see if you can get something better out of it, then by all means. You don't have to leave it on the volume weighted average price. It just that happens to be where the market is most drawn to, and unfortunately sometimes we trade through it by a couple of ticks, and sometimes we hold right in front of it. So it's math. It's not something that where the market must hold, but it's worth noting. Okay, starting to penetrate back up through this. We want to obviously try and hang inside of the 79. Right now, the VWAP is at 80 quarter. I think 80 is about the edge of what's logical. I think anything beyond that is we're just giving up a little extra based on the profile here. So what I'd like to do is just move this in. And I'm just going to use the edge of value, right? It's sort of like my concern here, where we have a bunch of volume and then a low volume node and then more volume. Here we have a bunch of volume, a low volume node, and then more volume. So I'm hoping that low volume node be the edge of value and should be really more of a backstop than the volume weighted average price. So we'll see if that comes together, but hopefully this will take a turn down and continue lower. Okay, well, we started coming back down. I want to put a quick profile on this prior low here, because I think it'll give us a good picture of where we just held. And so the big question is, can we penetrate this and make new lows, or did we just put in a double bottom? And if we did just put in a double bottom, then the real question is whether or not we want to carry this stop any higher than we just have, right? If we start making higher lows, we're retesting the low, and we start expanding, then chances are we need to be on the opposite side of this volume here. I don't know that we can get a whole lot closer. We're on the VWAP exactly right now. It's probably the difference of 25 or 50 bucks. So I like to think it all counts, but I'm looking at this. Most of the volume's down here on that transition, so maybe we don't even carry it that far. It's hard to say. I hate to put my stop on the edge of value here, exactly where a cluster is. So I think we probably just need to give it a. Why don't we'll bring it down to that low volume node there, 79.75. I don't think we can do any better than that. Okay, looks a lot like a double bottom here. As I said, we've just kind of got the stop working off of this prior transition that was a holding area. I think you could probably improve it by a tick or two. You could move it back by a tick or two. I don't think it'll matter much. If we come out above 79, this is probably over and done with, but a great little trade. And I think this was a very good lesson about why we need to be focused on the structure much more so than the math, right? I think for the most part, I sort of started my trading career just working off of chart structure and patterns. Really had no concept of volume at all back then, and those are the type of things that I would look at. Are we, if we're holding a double bottom and trading back up through a prior breakdown level, do I really want to have my stop there? In this case, a target that, rather than having it out here to make it 2-to-1, let's get it in front of the key level. You can see we stopped basically at the tick or a tick past it. Same thing with the other low, which I was actually pretty worried about. So looking good, but it looks like we're going to get popped on this.
Stop filled.
Well, and there we go, and hopefully that's not just as far as it goes, because you certainly don't want to be a tick in front of the VWAP and then have the VWAP hold. But either way, I think it was a logical place to put it. As soon as I saw this, I had a pretty good idea that this wasn't going to pan out. Sometimes they do anyways. But would have loved to have seen this break down and make some new lows for the day. But again, I think a great lesson. Keep in mind that the main aspects here are from the upswing. When we get here, we're already across the VWAP. We start printing volume across the VWAP, and we're below the last transition, so it's not a range. It's breaking down out of the range. That's when we want to get into the trade. If we can get into the trade and have our trade covered at 2-to-1 inside of wherever the next roadblock is, we're doing even better. In this case, we had to make a small adjustment. But as you can see, this traded back up anyways through 81. So hopefully a good lesson for you guys, and we'll keep them coming.